Hey folks, today we're going to be talking about the Autobomber Lightning Blast character. I've been talking about this for a while, and this is a build that I did play last season in 1.2, and in 1.3 we got pretty significant buffs for this character specifically, this build, and the damage overall versus last season, Lightning Blast Autobomber is probably like 7 or 8 times higher than before. The biggest change to the build is going to be the Lightning Blast belt. It's extremely strong. And we also get a fix to Spark Nova, which makes a huge difference for this build. And overall, it ends up being a very good speed farmer for even high corruption as high as 2000, as you saw before. And the boss killing is actually not too bad. I didn't find the Uber that difficult with this build. But yeah, overall, it feels pretty cool. It's not going to be as strong overall as the self-cast Lightning Blast, but if you are looking for something that's a little different, a little unique, and a very comfortable mono clearer that can also do bosses if you want, then this might be the build for you. Anyway, if you guys do enjoy this sort of thing, if you like this build, find it cool and fun, please do consider leaving a like on the video. It does help a lot, and I do appreciate it. And yeah, let's jump into it. So first I want to explain how the build works, where all the Lightning Blasts are coming from. The main thing here is that it's the same as the other Lightning Blast builds, where you are applying a bunch of spark charges. The spark charges blow up, they do a bunch of damage, you're stacking int, you have Fragment of Enigma. That's where most of your damage comes from. But unlike the self-cast where you just zap enemies yourself, you have multiple sources of Lightning Blast casting automatically while you are skating around in focus. It also feels great if you are playing with a controller, if that's your sort of thing. The sources of Lightning Blasts, we have like 4 or 5 of them. The first one is focus itself with Mana Guide. You can see it is 1 Lightning Blast per second, so that's not so great on its own. We also have even more from static itself. So you can see here, this is just static doing that. And you can already see the chains are going off pretty hard just from static alone. It is pretty good. So that is the first source. The next source we have is Frostwall. So we put this down, and Frostwall also is casting Lightning Blast. So you can see even more Lightning Blast. Great. Mana Guide itself also casts Lightning Blast, so even more Lightning Blast. And then in addition to all of that fun stuff, Focus also lets us use Arcane Ascendance while we are in Focus. So there you go, we just turn it on after we start using Focus, and it is a lot of hits going on from all of those things together. Arcane Ascendance also triggers the Lightning Blast when you use it. You hit an enemy with the Lightning Blast, you get additional Lightning Blast, 2-second cooldown, but it is 60% faster, so a little under 1 second. So all of those going off, you're getting quite a few Lightning Blasts per second, and the belt here is actually giving it a chance to chain, and this does work with indirect cast, unlike most of the nodes in the Lightning Blast tree. So that's what's increasing our damage so much. This makes a huge difference, and you do want a good roll on this item. The other thing that made a big difference over last season is now Spark Nova is fixed. Previously it didn't work applying spark charges, but now that it does, because we don't need the multicast nodes, it's very easy for us to path all the way here and grab Spark Nova. We don't have to sacrifice much. We still get all of our damage nodes. If you're fighting bosses, you can take out Final Spark and put it in Mortal Capacitor, but basically we get a lot of extra spark charges from the Spark Novas that are being applied. The single target damage is quite a bit weaker than the self-cast, just because all the, 6+ casts per second from self-cast and all the extra chains from the direct cast, it does make a big difference, but it's still good enough to do Uber and all those other bosses, so I think it's fine. You can also, with this build, juice up your damage quite a bit with double Jorah Ring if you want something like this. The self-cast build can't really do that because it needs to use the primordial ring, and it also loses out from not having the set ring. So this is kind of hard to do with the self-cast. And that also makes a pretty big difference in your damage when you have that Jorah buff. So that does do a lot if you want. Personally, I enjoy the red rings. I just keep them on all the time. It gives everything that you really want. Move speed, defense, all attribute, DR. They're just really, really good. If we change out our gear, you can see our resists are pretty good. You can fill in whatever you're missing with the idle corners here. And yeah, that's pretty much how it functions. through the maps, what I like to do is use WRONGWARP. I don't actually have a good WRONGWARP yet, but you can see here while gliding, 118 move speed. You can see this little buff at the bottom here, Chrono Warp, that's your move speed. All you have to do when you're running the maps is when that runs out, you just tap it again, turn on Arcane Ascendance, zoom around, you're now killing everything. This lasts for 10 seconds. And then when that runs out, you just use it again and repeat. And that's pretty much it. If you see something tanky, you drop a Frost Wall on it. And that's pretty much it for the rotation. Super simple. For single target, I do like to use a Ladle, but this is totally up to you. It will make a big difference of your damage. Gives you some free frailty and shred and all that stuff. This build doesn't hit as much as the other build, so I do have shred on the gloves. It is optional. You will get enough shred from a well-rolled Ladle, so do keep that in mind. But if you need more, you can get shred somewhere else, either necklace or gloves. This is a pretty well-geared character overall. So first I will talk about the skills, why we've done what we've done. So Lightning Blast tree is pretty straightforward. We want to path up here because Spark Nova is basically double the amount of hits that we get normally. This is pretty obvious why you would want that. I take only 2 of 4 here. Normally you would take 3 in self-cast. Reason is because this is only for direct cast, which we are not doing. We also take the Aegis because we get quite a bit of damage from our idols on Aegis, so this is pretty high value. It also does give us a bit of DR. It does do based on damage you take of your life, so pretty much every hit in High Corruption is going to pop your Aegis, but you do reapply it a lot, so it's fine. It's a little bit of lightning damage while it's up and damage for idols. Overall, it is worth taking. Then over here, these are all your Spark Charge nodes. Pretty much mandatory for this build. You can't skip out on this stuff. This here is really good for clear. It just makes the Spark Charge blow up quicker. In low corruption, you probably don't need it. In higher corruption, you do want your Spark Charge damage. So this is high value. For Uber or whatever, you can take a node out here, put it in here. It'll probably feel better. I have 3 of 4 here because this does work with indirect cast as well. At least it seems like it. And it is probably worth it. If you're struggling with mana sustain, just take the point out here, put it in here or anywhere else really that you find gives value. And then that'll help with mana sustain. Next we have static. This is basically just applying more lightning blast. So the nodes over here you want, these are pretty much the mandatory ones here, here, and here. That's all you really need. And then this while moving goes a long way. It works while you're in focus. It's pretty high value. Then the last few points here, sort of up to you. I think the charge gain is good. So whenever you're entering a new area, you're going to get the charges quicker. Then you just have more capacity. It doesn't really do anything, but you can take that as well. Then in the Frostwall tree, the big thing here is you get damage buff to chilled, 14% more damage. You want duration, quality of life. And then over here, these are the Lightning Blast nodes. So this is all of the important stuff, is those nodes. So Lightning Blast casting every 2 seconds, frequency. It's also based on how often the enemies pass through, so I find it helps to put it directly on the bosses. It seems like you do get more benefit out of that. Then we do have a cleanse here, so if you are with an ailment you don't want, you can just drop the Frostwall directly on top of yourself, get rid of it. This also helps a little bit with mana sustain. Every 15 seconds you get a free one. It doesn't make that big of a difference. I took lightning here. This doesn't really do much. If you don't have this, you get free chill, so you don't need chill on a weapon or your passive tree. So if you don't have a source of chill, maybe don't take this node. But otherwise, just like slightly more damage probably doesn't matter. And then over here, you get a little bit more ward. Then focus. This is pretty much just full defense setup. I did take mana because it helps sustain just a little bit better. You do get more mana regen per missing, so if you start channeling while lower, you do get more regen through that, so that does help. Then the rest of this here is pretty much just defense. If you don't take mana regen, you can actually grab more damage reduction here against ignited enemies, so that is an option. But the main thing here is I took while shocked and while chilled DR for the enemies. You get armor per int, so you actually get quite a bit of armor with this build just from this. This also means that any bit of strength that you happen to get in your build does make a big difference. Then lastly, we go over here, no cooldown. honestly, it just feels awful to not have this node, so I do think it's worth it. And then you get tiny bit of damage, basically nothing, and that's pretty much focus. And then we have Arcane Ascendance, so this you're using while you are zooming around. Main thing here is we want the Lightning Blast casting, so these nodes here, you get a bit of spell damage here. This is just nice to have. Then you have a pretty big node here. This is more damage per slow. So you have 3 slow stacks, 24% more damage. This is a pretty big deal. This prevents you from draining mana, and it's affecting 4 spells direct cast, but since we are not direct casting, this just stays up for 12 seconds. So you do need to recast this occasionally, but it stays up for a while, it's fine. Then we have mana gained on killing distant enemies. This just helps sustain in monos. And then we have cooldown recovery. This is just quality of life. This feels good. And then you get ward on start. It's just a tiny boost of ward every time you use it. This is good to have. Next, we'll talk about gear. So first, I guess we'll start with the necklace. Mana Guide is mandatory. You can't do the focus channel without Mana Guide. You need this. This is random drop. To make this build work, you need to go find it, do prophecies, do whatever you need to do to get this. You need this to get the build started. Then we have Bone Clamor. So for the helmet, there are several options. I've actually been using the Fractured Crown a bit, and I do like it. If you can get a little bit more damage dealt to mana before health, it actually feels pretty good, because the innate DR of damage taken to mana is 80%. So for every, I guess, 5 points of damage you take, only 1 goes to mana. So it is a lot better than it actually seems, and when you are regenning with focus, this actually is pretty nice. And you do have, in the Sorc tree, if you do go with Fractured Crown, you have a bit more here, so 20% for 10 points. If you want to get really tanky, you can do that. You can also get a bit more in Idols, but it's really awkward. But if you can, if you want, it's there as an option. And you can also sacrifice a little bit of damage and slam damage taken to mana on a helmet if you want even more. You could do that, but you are going to need a 2 LP because you need that +4 Lightning Blast. But that would make you like a really, really tanky option. And speaking of tanky, you could do that with the Seed of Yggdrasil. So you still do have ward, and you have the damage taken to mana, and you have endurance applying to damage dealt to mana. So you'd probably want endurance %, either on Blessing or on Belt, Gloves, or something like that. But if you want to go really, really tanky, you could probably do something with Seed, because of all the DR you have built in, plus the endurance DR, plus the ward, plus the, if you have a little bit of life with the endurance for that, and you get the endurance threshold, so maximum health gained is a threshold. If you have all that, it ends up being pretty tanky, so that is an option. But overall, Bone Clamor, it's just good. It's some free ward. If you're doing the ward setup, it feels really good. You get Necro Res cap for basically free, you get extra armor, you get int, all that stuff is good. So definitely a solid helm. This is what I would go for first. Before you get 2 LP, just slam Lightning Blast, and it will help quite a bit. Then for weapon, the only 2 real options is Ladle or WRONGWARP. WRONGWARP for clear, Ladle for single target. 4 LP you can pretty easily farm by doing some of the Rune Prison Complex. Then you can do, if you are COF at least, you can do Nemesis Turtle on repeat. Because the LP level is so low, if you are COF, this will never turn into a legendary on Nemesis. So you can just repeatedly turtle it to try and get more LP, then Nemesis it, then turtle and repeat till you get 4 LP. It is farmable. It's like something like 1 in 800 or whatever to get one for COF, so it's not too bad. Then we have Unstable Core. This is the chess piece, the only real option. I guess you don't actually need it for this version of the build. You could do Core of the Mountain or maybe Static Shell. There's a few other options, but Unstable Core I think is really good. I already had one for self-cast, so I decided to use it. If you have Spell Crit, you can just get 1 flat crit item on your build, and then no other crit anywhere else, and you are crit capped. You can see here I am at 111 spell crit. So this is really nice quality of life. If you're using Blood Gloves with this, you are crit capped. If you're using Shattered Worlds, you are crit capped. If you don't have crit on your chest, which you probably don't, then you can use both Shattered World and Gloves to get crit capped. If you do not have Shattered Worlds or crit on your chest piece, you use the Gloves, and you're going to need like a spell crit on either your Catalyst and Wand or something else. You will need some crit somewhere. If that's the case, you want to get as close to 100 as possible. So just keep that in mind. This is kind of ideal. You could also get Lightning multi here, and then you'd need spell crit somewhere else. But this overall is pretty good. Then for Catalyst, the only real option is Fragment of the Enigma. The important thing here is you want a high int roll. The chance to apply Spark Charge, not that important, just because we have so much already, but it is nice. And then your priority affixes here are probably going to be crit multi and lightning damage. I guess for the wand, priority is crit multi, lightning damage. We don't benefit from cast speed at all. Then lightning pen is the next priority here. Then for the rings, you have a couple options here. I think the best is Red Ring, because it does give everything we want. Attribute, res, move speed, and DR. Hard to compete with that. This build does struggle a little bit to get resist, so these make a huge difference. If you do not have red rings, you could do something like Crab Ring. Crab is pretty good. It gives a bunch of defense, a huge amount of armor from strength and percent armor. You can see here, I guess, while channeling, 5354, 6100. So this is actually quite a bit of armor. Same with Fairboars. It is a lot of armor. So these are options you can use if you don't have red rings. Another option, if you want even more damage, is the Jorah rings. I find them a little bit awkward to use with this build because you are channeling, then you want to use a traversal, then start channeling again, but there is a bit of a delay before you start doing lightning blasts. So I find the synergy with Jorah rings is not actually that great, but it does give you more damage. If you are trying to completely destroy a boss, you do like Fractured Ground Jorah ring, and you do quite a bit of damage with that setup, but you lose all the tankiness of the red ring. So I do prefer the red ring. Next, for the belt. So the important thing is you want the T8 on this. The T8 is currently bugged. It looks like it's giving you 4 chains for with Convergence and Lightning Blast tree instead of 2. So if that is bug fixed, we would lose something like 30-something% of our damage. So it would be a pretty big loss. But the build would still function even if it is bug fixed. For affixes on this is just where you're filling other stuff. So you have percent lightning damage, you have resist, you have crit reduction, cleanse, stuff like that. These are all good. You can get anything here that's useful. It is good. And you can also, if you remove all of the non-sealed affixes, you have a really good leveling item here. You can see this is the T8 with a cleanse T1 seal. Requires level 14. Great leveling item if you want. Just have fun with that. Then the gloves, you have a couple options here. You can use Weaver gloves if you want, but you don't really benefit from the cast speed. The Fingers gloves gives you swiftness though, so that's 20% move speed. Makes a pretty big difference. Here I have Int and Shred. The Shred's just a bit of a helper, so I stack up the Shred quicker. Not necessary. Ideally here you probably want some other defense, like armor, or anything really, crit reduction, whatever. Even strength would give you more armor, so there's quite a few options, filling resist or something. But I think these are probably some of the best options. If not, you have Grasp of the Blood Mage. And another option is something like Immortal Vise you could do as well. This is very tanky. Strength, life, armor applies to dot. All of these are big defense stats, plus you have the stagger as well. Damage taken is dealt over time. That's a huge defense. So if you want to get tanky, you can use Immortal Vise. Then for boots, I think the only real option is Blood of the Exile. You could use Talfoons if you want to get a crazy amount of dodge while channeling, but the move speed doesn't work while channeling. And I do think move speed is really important for this build. Otherwise, what's the point of playing Autobomber? Might as well just play something else. So definitely want move speed. Then lastly, you have the Relic. If you don't have Shattered Worlds, I think Twisted Heart is not that great for this build, just because we don't do any direct casts. You're not getting that much benefit. Strength is defense though, so I guess it's fine. It has +1 level, not ideal. You could also use the Mage relic. It also has +1 level. The main thing here is that you do want int, whatever relic you have, you want intelligence on it. There's also like Lagon relic. It has a bit of damage and resists and defense. Maybe even Exalt relic is probably fine. But Shattered Worlds I think is definitely best in slot if you can get it. For relics, the best in slot is the Adorned Idol. This has double damage on it. You don't care about cast speed, so the tall relics don't really matter. So these are pretty much the only real option for endgame. These you want to farm, prioritize these. And then for the enchant, flat damage I think is probably the best option. Then moving over to blessings, it's pretty much the same as the other build, but you want crit multi, all res. Armor while channeling is good. You can also just get regular armor if you don't want to get blasted while you're not channeling, but you should always be channeling, so this is fine. Then percent armor and lightning shred. Then moving over to passives, in the basic tree, if you are doing Fracture Crown, you probably want the Scholar node instead of Elementalist, because it gives you health and mana, which both benefit. Int you obviously want. Ward retention you obviously want. Cast speed doesn't matter for this build, so we prioritize other stuff. Moving over to Spellblade tree, we just grab int here. Ward decay is nice, but mainly we want int. If you want to sacrifice something else, you can also take 8 int here, but you are basically giving up 2 nodes to get that. It is an option though early on. If you don't have a lot of int, you can take this. Then in the Runemaster tree, DR, obviously we want. You go through here, grab int, and crit multi. I also take the ward per second health. This is good for defense. If you are doing Fractured Crown, you would not take this. Then in the sort tree, this is where the majority of your spell crit comes from. You want the int. This is really good. We have some ward per second here. You could also take spell damage ward if you want. These nodes here are really hard to make use of while running echoes, and all you really get is the spell damage move speed. So it is an option if you want, but I find it awkward to use. Not a huge fan for this type of build. Otherwise, we take more lightning damage. The main reason they're taking all of these points is because there's not a lot here that benefits us. We need to get all the way to the end here, and this is just pathing. If you don't have chill anywhere else in your build, you can take 1 point here just to apply chilled for Frostwall. But if you don't have chill, you can just use cold Frostwall, which will apply the chill, so you don't really need this node. Then we take crit multi, int, ward decay threshold, and a bit of flat spell. This is 2 per point if you have over 300. It does give you just a bit more damage. It is nice to have, not necessary. Alternative to this would be the int nodes in Spellblade if you want. Anyway, that's pretty much it. As I said, this is probably not going to be stronger than the self-cast Lightning Blast if you just want the strongest build possible. But if you want a really chill farmer that's a little bit different and still able to do everything in the game, then this might be the build for you. Anyway, as always, I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.